Okay, so now what we want to do is actually create the to-do when the person clicks enter on the input or clicks this button. So first thing we need to do is give this button a type, which is going to be the submit type. So it's a submit type for the form, and we want to do on submit, so we check if the person has submitted the form, which is either going to be by clicking enter when writing inside the input, or clicking the button, which is type submit for the form. And okay, so on submit, we want to call a function, which we are going to create right now. So we're going to call that function, also do const handle submit. So the function is going to be handle submit, and it's going to be an arrow function, so like that. And this is going to take an event, so e, and then so on submit we just want to call this function, so handle submit. So we're expecting an event because when we submit is an event, so it should pass in an event. So you could do over here, you could call it whatever you want, this variable, so it could be event, it could be e, up to you. But something is going to be passed in, and it's going to be the event of the submit. So what we want to do is event.prevent default. So prevent. So if we don't do this, we'll get an error, and I'll explain why. So prevent default just cancels the event of the submit, so the default event of the submit, so it won't occur. So basically, when you do when a form is submitted, I think it refreshes the page. So this just stops it from refreshing, because then all of our state will be deleted unless we use Redux persist. But I'm not going to use Redux in this course. I'm just going to use normal state, ReactJS, and that's it. Okay. Okay. So when we create a to-do, when we submit the form and we create a to-do, we need to set the input back to nothing, and yeah, so we need to set the input back to nothing. So when a user types in the to-do, so he can create a new to-do after it. So I want to set the input, the value of it, back to nothing. So we'll do set input back to an empty string. And so now to actually add the to-do. So let's go to app.js, and we're going to make a function called onSubmit. So let's do that. Const, or call it add to-do. Add to-do. And we'll make it an arrow function, and this will take in the text of the to-do, and now we'll actually create the to-do. But before we do that, I just want to pass it into the, so we can pass in props to components. So this to-do form is our component, and you can pass in props, so it could be like a variable or a function or whatever you want. So I'm just going to pass it in as add to-do. So this is just like passing in variables to a function, kind of. So we're passing in props, so add to-do. And we'll just when he calls this add to do, we're passing in a function, so we're going to pass in add to do, and then we can get this prop inside to do form by doing props over here, and then we can do it like that, and then do props, and then we can call the function by props.add to do, like that, or we can do it like this, object destructuring like this, and then do add to do, and when you do this, that means you can just take whatever you want from props when you do these curly braces, and then or you can do props, so just take it in as props like the first time, and do object destructuring over here, so like this, const, and then like that, and then whatever the prop is, so add to do, and then this equals to props. You can do it 3 ways. So I'm just going to do props for now. This is the simplest way, so you can understand. And then I'm going to call that add to do function, so in app.js that we passed in, and that so I'm going to call it so props.add to do, and then when I do that, when I call that add to do, I want to pass in whatever the person put inside the input, which is when the value of the input changes, we set the input state, we set it to the value of this input. So basically, whatever's inside the input, whatever the person wrote, is stored inside our input variable, our input state. So we just want to pass in the state, so input state. And then in app.js, so the input state is going to be the text, so it's going to pass it into the text, and now whatever the person wrote will be text for us, and we can use that now. We can use this text to create our to-do. So the first thing we want to do is, so the to-do is going to have an ID, and the to-do is going to have some text, and it's going to have completed. So the ID is going to be, so we can find so when the person wants to delete a to-do or complete a to-do, we need to first find that to-do by the ID. So each one has to have a specific ID. So first thing I want to do is give id equal to 1, and we're also going to have a state over here, so we'll do const array, to-dos. So over here we're going to be storing our to-dos in this state, and we can do a function set to-dos to change the to-dos, just like I explained for inside to-do form while we did the input. So set to-dos, and we'll do the use state hook, React hook. And now we're going to set it to an empty array, because to-dos is going to be an array of to-dos. So we also need to import use state from React, so import use state from React, and use state over here. I'm just going to put this at the top. You don't have to, but I just like to do that. And remember to clean this code, Alt Shift F if you're on Windows, and Option Shift F if you're on Mac. So just clean it up a little bit. And okay, so we're setting the ID as 1, and now we're setting the ID as 1 if it's the first to do. So if there's no to-dos, then the first one is going to have an ID of 1. Otherwise, we want to check if the to-dos dot length. So we're checking how many to-dos there are. So to-dos dot length. So the to-dos is the to-dos in state, and we're checking the length of it. So how many things there are inside the array, the length of the array. We're checking if the to-dos dot length is bigger than 0. Then what we want to do is we want to change the ID, because there already is a to-do with the ID of 1, and we want each one to have a unique ID. So what we want to do is change the value of ID. So ID is going to equal to to-dos, and we're going to get the first element of the to-do, and we're going to get the ID of that, and plus 1, because we're getting the first element because that's going to be the newest to-do. So I'll show you why. When we actually change the to-dos, when we create a new to-do, we're going to put it at the beginning of the array, so we know that is the newest to-do, and then we'll just get the ID of that and add 1 to it, which would be our new to-do ID. So this will make sense in a bit. So now let's actually make the to-do object. So our to-do, we're going to let to-do equals an object, and this object, just like I said, is going to have an ID and some text of the to-do, and completed is going to be set to false. So the first thing is going to be the ID, and we're going to set it to the ID of what we just done. So it's either going to be 1 if it's the first to do, or if there already is to-dos, we're going to get the newest to-do, which is going to have the biggest ID, and then we're just going to add 1 to that and give it to the new one. So that's going to be the ID, and then the text of that to-do is going to be set to the text that is being passed in from to-do form, so whatever the person put in the input. So I'm just going to explain this again. So on change, so when the value of this input changes, we want to do set input, change the state to the value of that whatever the person wrote, and then when the person clicks enter on this input, or clicks the button to submit to the form, so on submit, handle submit, and then this calls the add to do and passes in the input, which is the state, which is what the person wrote, and then that passes it into this add to do function, and this add to do function gets called, and the input is being named as the text variable. So whatever the person put is going to be stored inside text variable, and then we put it as the text of the to do. And we're also going to have completed, and we're going to set that to false. So the complete is either going to be true or false. If it's true, we're going to have a strike through on the text. If it's false, it's just going to be normal. So now that we've actually created our to do, we want to set the to-dos, so we want to put this to-do inside to-dos. So how do we do that? So we do set to-dos, and then we want to put an array, and that array is going to, just like I said, we're going to be pushing in the to-do as the first element of the array, so as the first variable of the array, first object of the array. So we can easily find the biggest ID and plus 1 to it. So to do that, we make an array, and we do to-do, so our new to-do, pass it in at the beginning of the array, and then we just want to get a copy of the to-dos state. So we want to get a copy of the to-do state and put it inside the array. So this array is going to contain the new to-do plus the old to-dos, and the new to-do is going to be at the beginning. Okay, so we can also do it this way, set to-dos and then just pass in the to-do, but that would add it at the end of the array, but we want it at the beginning, so we can just find the biggest ID and plus 1 to it. So that's why I'm doing it this way. So I'm putting the to-do first and then getting a copy of the state to-dos. and adding it inside the array. Okay, so I'm just gonna take this array that we've done. Sorry, it's meant to be to do. I'm just gonna get this array and then put it inside the variable, and then so let new to dos equals, put that, and then I'll just pass new to dos. So this is much neater. Okay, so let's just console.log new to dos, see if it's right. So if it's actually adding the to dos, the new to do with the to dos, the old to dos. So whenever I click, whenever I add a to do, it should console.log it. So let's see. So if I refresh, add a to do, let's check out console now. Console, as you can see, we have an array which has our to do. So this is our to do that I just added. If I add another to do, it's getting my old to do from the state and adding my new to do. So the state is getting it from here and adding it with a new to do and putting it inside an array. Okay, so it should all be working. So now let's actually display these to dos, because now we're adding them. So now let's actually display them. So to display them, we want to make a new component called to do item. So let's go to our components folder and then make a new file, and we'll call it to do item.js. And so I'm going to make another functional component, so RFC, and now I have a functional component. And now in app.js, for each to do, I want to use a to do item component. So I want to display the to do using the to do item component. So now for each to do I make, so for each one there is a state. So for all the to dos, so for each one I just want to display a to do item, and then I'll pass in the to do, and over there I'll just display the name, make that card that you saw, that blue card, and give it those delete buttons and complete buttons. So I'm going to open up these, and then inside it I'm going to do todos.map, so the to dos from state, this one. I'm going to do .map, so I'm going to map over them for each one. And then this is going to give me an arrow, so I can do an arrow function, and it will give me the to do for each one, and then do an arrow function. And for each one I just want to return a to do item for each one. So to do item, the component that we just made. So I'm going to click enter, and that would automatically import it for me. If it doesn't, just do import to do item from the path, which is /components/to do item. So to do item, and then I'm going to close the tags, and then I want to pass in the to do as a prop. And then so I go to do item, and remember, just like I said, we can receive the props like that, and then we can use it doing props.todo. So I'm just going to display the to do, so props.todo, and remember, to do is an object that contains an ID and text and completed. So I'm just going to display the text for each one. So let's see how it's working now. As you can see, we have a few to dos. If I add another one, sorry, there we go. If I add some more, as you can see, it's adding the to do over here. So now I want to display it like really nice. So I'm just going to use my class names from app.css. So I'm just going to give this to do a class name of to do row, which is one of the classes that I've implemented in app.css. So as you can see now, all my to dos are being over here, as you can see. So if I do this, add to do, and also remember when I said that whenever the user adds a to do, I want to set the input back to nothing. So I want to change the value. So if I go to do form, I want to give this input a value, and that value is equal to the input from state, because after I add a to do, I'm setting it back to nothing. So I want to also set the value of this input back to nothing. So now if I add a to do, as you can see, this goes back to nothing. Okay, so as you can see, it's being displayed really nicely. Now I want to implement the remove to do and complete to do. So let's get the remove to do icon from React Icons. So let's actually go ahead and install React Icons. So open up a new terminal, npm install React Icons, and then we need to do -s, which means save. I'll explain that later. Okay, so while React Icons is actually installing, I just want to show you something. So if I go to app.js and to do item, so I'm giving, for each to do, I'm giving it a to do item component that we just created, and I just want to show you something. So if I go open the console, as you can see, we are getting some errors over here. So each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So to fix that, we just need to give this a key, and that key is going to be based on the to do ID. So each to do item is going to have a different ID, a different key. So if I refresh, the errors are gone. Okay, so now that we have installed React icons, let's actually use the icons in our to-do item. So let me just show you where you can find all these icons. So if I go to React icons, and then as you can see over here we have React icons. So if I click on that, over here you can search for all the icons. So you can do, for example, check, and that would give you all the check icons, and there's so many. So right now we want to delete icons, so just search delete. As you can see, there's so many delete icons. So there's one specific one that I want, so let me just go and get that. So the one I want is close circle line. So close circle line. Yeah, this one. This is the one that I want. So I copied it to clipboard, and now we can actually use it. So if I go to do item, you need to put it inside the to do row. So if I do Ctrl V, and then like that. So now I actually have this, but I need to import this. So to import this, I do import, and then open these, Ctrl V, from. So you import it from React icons, and then slash whatever the first two letters are. So ri/ri, React icons/ri. There's so many. So if I search for delete, as you can see, there's AI, MD, RI, TI. There's so many. So I'm just going to use the RI. So I'm using RI closed circle line. So I need to do it from RI. Okay. So now that I've done this, I want to wrap this inside a div, because for styling purposes. And this div is going to have a class name, which is equal to icons container. And this icon is also going to have a class name which is equal to icon. It just makes it white, I think. And let me see. So it just makes it, yeah, it just makes it white. That's it. So okay, so now if I save this and go back to the website, cannot resolve. So sometimes when you install a new dependency, just like React, such as React icons, you need to restart